going to get started. We'll be having a couple more people come in, including, we expect, one more of the presenters. And we're gonna move through things pretty quickly tonight because we actually have a lot of ground to cover. There's a lot of content we'll be covering tonight. So, welcome to Philly NetSquared. A question I'd like to ask is how many people are new to Philly NetSquared tonight? Not as many as usual, I think. Okay, just a couple. Okay, great. So, just for your information, what Philly NetSquared is one of many NetSquared groups around the world. They all actually define themselves a little bit differently. What we tend to do is think of ourselves as ways of using the social web for social change. And with that broad definition, we try and have programming that makes sense. The main activity that we do for that programming are these Net Tuesdays, which are the first Tuesday of every month on some sort of topic. On the second Tuesday, which will be a week for tonight, we have a planning meeting, and everyone's invited to attend that, either to just help think about things and plan things, or perhaps you have your own topic or particular passion that relates to this area that you'd like us to help you develop a program around. We also have a website and a Google group that you're invited to check out and join. Here are some of the past Net Tuesdays we've had for the last year, I guess. We've been around since May of 2008, and I won't go through these right now. What I will say, because I forgot to put a slide, is that next month our topic is going to be on intellectual property. Denny, do you want to say anything about that?
Next month is going to be on intellectual property. We're going to have an attorney. Her name's Dina Lavis, who specializes in intellectual property. She's done a lot of work with digital legal issues. And we're also going to see if we're going to have someone with Creative Commons as well. So it should be interesting. We'll be covering intellectual property, copyright, different things that we need to consider.
So if you have ideas about that, please feel free to talk to Denny. In addition to the physical presence here in this room, we're streaming this on the internet live, and we're entertaining a Twitter back channel, which over the past few months has gotten up and down amount of traffic, but we're persisting. In addition to the programming itself and the actual content, we really feel strongly about the idea of networking. So please fill in the sign-in sheet there if you haven't already done so. We'll copy people's email addresses into a spreadsheet and send them back out to everyone so everyone has those, as well as their business cards. If you leave a business card, then we'll scan that and send a scanned image of the business cards back out to everyone. Everyone should have a tag that they're wearing, which is both a name tag and a way of tagging yourself with some additional information, except for those of you who are rebels.
No, I just actually forgot.
Okay, well, but we're not strict on those things. But the idea is basically as a networking hook and an opportunity to be able to say hi to people. And, of course, we have a no questions, too stupid policy. One thing I do want to mention, because it's coming up in the middle of November, is Social Media Plus is the Business 2.0 Business Summit. And as a promotional partner, Philly NetSquared folks can get a 15% discount by registering with PNS15 as the code. Do you want to say anything about that, Gloria, just real quickly, since you have some?
It is November 15th and 16th at the Pennsylvania Convention Center. We will be talking about social media from a very business-focused perspective. We're running speakers in 4 different tracks: executive and business owner, HR and recruiting, sales and business development, and marketing and PR. And we have some really, really fantastic speakers. Mayor Nutter is actually opening our conference for us. Jason Falls is our keynote speaker. Chris Penn, who is an internationally known speaker especially on topics of ROI in social media. I have the heads of social media from QVC, Lockheed, Marriott, some really huge corporations that are coming in talking about real life case studies on how their companies are using social media. And if anyone has any questions, wants any more information, please just let me know. One thing I will tell you is we are running a special that ends on October 15th. That's probably going to be our last discounted price. So if you register before October 15th and you use that discount code, you're going to get approximately 40% off your ticket. So
No pressure.
no pressure. Yeah, not at all.
Okay.
But everybody likes to save. So
Some housekeeping here. We have food over there, and we don't want to take any of it home. So please eat what you can. This is a very green building, and you'll hear a little bit more about that in a moment. But what I want to say about that right now is that we have both composting and recycling over there. All of the food is compostable, even the meats and cheeses. So please take advantage of that. The bathrooms are outside, right past the elevators. We have open Wi-Fi access. There's no password required. And if you parked in the lot across 15th Street, you can get a 10%, 15%, 10% discount.
Oh, it's more than that. It's $10 to park. I think it's $20 if you.
A 20% discount by having your parking card validated at the desk.
50% discount. Anyhow, it costs $10 if you get your card validated.
Okay. And then finally, I just want to thank our sponsors for tonight, the American Friends Service Committee, which is one of the tenants of this Friends Center complex, and Chevy Volt, who wants to get their name out there and is also helping to sponsor this event. We are having this, as you know, and we have been having it for the last year here in the Friends Center. And tonight we have the opportunity for Pat McBee, who's the director of the Friends Center, just to tell you a little bit about what this facility is all about. Pat?
You didn't tell me whether you wanted the 30-second or the 30-minute version.
30 minutes is fine. I think we want it short.
Well, how does it feel to be in a fossil fuel-free, carbon-neutral building? It doesn't really feel any different from being in an ordinary building, except that your heart and conscience feel better. Friends Center has been here in one form or another since 1856 and has been a center for community groups talking about a variety of pressing issues of their times to gather. So it's very good to have you continuing in that chain. I'm also have my blatant hucksterism. The groups that you're part of, we rent these conference rooms, and we'd be glad to have people come and be with us. We have rooms that comfortably accommodate 5 or 10 people and a space that would accommodate 700 for a lecture. So probably most of your meetings would be somewhere in between there. So it's great to have you here. I'm very pleased that you have been using the Friends Center for your meetings and hope you will continue to do so. I have just a few brochures on our conference rooms. They're all I could find. I'll put them on the table. And with your permission, I'd like to take a few pictures of you while you're doing your thing tonight.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is just go around and do quick introductions, self-introductions for people. I'd like people to ask people to use the microphone, not so much because you can't be heard in the room, but because it helps with the stream and with the recording, and also acts as a talking stick. So my name is Seth Horwitz. I'm a consultant under the name of CommuniShare. I do a lot of consulting here with the American Friends Service Committee in areas of knowledge management and collaborative learning. So we'll just pass this on.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Twitterverse. I'm Andy Sharp with the Delaware Valley Association of Rail Passengers. I also write for Flying Kite magazine. And the one place that I would like to go is Nova Scotia.
I'm Sean Toohey. I'm with Public Citizens for Children and Youth, or PCCY.
Darlene Cavalier with Science Cheerleader and ScienceForCitizens.net. Brian Andrews. I'm with the Math and Science Coalition of Philadelphia.
I'm Lamar Kendrick, and I'm with EDO Ventures. And I should like to say to you, is it your name, Pat? In 1980, I hung out in this space, this room here. It was the library.
The library.
And I met two people here who changed my life forever, in a good way. So just wanted to share that with you.
Good.
So
Thank
this
you
has
for
a
that
special place for me.
testimonial.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Jane Reinhold.
Hi, my name is Nathan Gosser. I have a web development company called Rock River Star. We do website development and Drupal consulting for nonprofits and higher ed.
My name is Mary, and I'm a learner.
Learning all this stuff.
My name is Ivan Booth, and I do web development and social media consulting under rootwork.org.
Hi, I'm Mike Figgins. I collect stories and post them at philstories.org.
Hi, I'm Wendy Univer. I work at the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College in Winnicott.
Hi, I'm Michael Reichner. I do web development and database consulting.
Danny Casrell, online and new media specialist for healthpartners.com, and Joe Phillies.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Manisha. I work with the Philadelphia Mural Arts Program.
Hi, Mitch Collier with a small contractor in Philadelphia. We work on communications projects for the federal government.
I'm Carolyn Makuga, and I'm with Context Travel. We're a network of scholars and experts who lead walking seminars in cities in Europe and the U.S.
I'm Mark Ray, and I work for a company called Ascendant Technologies as a project manager.
Okay, why don't we just...
Okay, I'm Harold Pugh. I work here at the American Friends Service Committee and take care of some of the technical stuff.
Okay, I think that's everyone right now except for the panel, which I think will be introduced in a moment. I'm going to turn this over to Ivan, who will be moderating the panel. But first, we have just one other piece of business that we have to take care of, which is to acknowledge that it is Gloria's birthday, and we do get a chance to actually sing. So
Thanks.
everyone has to help with this. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Thank you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Gloria. Happy birthday to you. We'll put that over there. Thank you very much.
Gloria, are you 21 now?
I am very proud to say I am 46 today.
Looking good.
Thank you.
Good.
Well, wasn't that a nice start to our event? Welcome, everybody. As I said, my name is Ivan Booth. I do consulting under the name rootwork.org. And I'm going to be giving just a real short, brief overview of location-based services and then introducing our fine panel this evening who will be talking about different aspects of that sort of universe of services and applications. And so the way things are going to work tonight is each speaker will be presenting for about 10 minutes on their sort of experiences and area of knowledge. And then we'll have about 5 minutes or so of time when people can ask clarifying questions. And so the idea with that period of time is for people to ask questions to get a better understanding of what the speaker is talking about or presenting about or overviewing. And then at the end, after all four presenters have had some time and to talk about their experiences, we'll be getting more discussion time to really get into some of the back and forth and some of the bigger picture questions. So I'll remind you when that period comes up, but just to keep in mind, we're wanting for those initial periods to be about clarifying what the speakers are saying rather than beginning the discussion, which will happen after we've heard from all four folks. So, welcome. We're going to be talking tonight about location-based services and how that applies and what the interests in that field of applications and services are for nonprofits, social change, activists, social causes, that whole social good universe. And so I'm sure the speakers are going to be talking more extensively about the different aspects of this, but I just wanted to give a couple quick examples of how this might be used or useful to nonprofits and social causes. So location-based services have been around for 10-ish years, depending on how you measure when things got rolling. A service called Dodgeball, which was originally started by some students, was later acquired by Google in 2005. It was founded in 2000. And the first sort of location-aware device available to most consumers was available in 1999. It was one of the Palm pilots. I forget which number it was. So it's been 10-ish years of this sort of thing being available, but really in the last 5 years, with services like Google Maps and FourSquare, those have been kind of the driving force behind adoption and use of these different services. So I'll give one quick example of how this kind of location-based service is being used by a nonprofit. And the nonprofit is the Brooklyn Museum in Brooklyn, New York. And so they have a page or a profile on FourSquare. And FourSquare, Gloria's going to talk, I hope, extensively about. But FourSquare is a service for people with smartphones or location-aware devices so they can check in and make themselves known and sort of say, I'm here at this location. And so Brooklyn Museum has a presence on FourSquare, so people can check in when they're at the Brooklyn Museum. And they have a couple pretty interesting things that they're doing with that. So a sort of FourSquare convention is that after someone checks in a certain number of times, the person who's checked in the most gets declared mayor of that location. And so the Brooklyn Museum has given particular discounts and awards to people who become mayor or who are that sort of hold that title for a certain amount of time. Another interesting thing is that when you check in at the Brooklyn Museum, you can look at other recommendations by staff of the museum for things in the neighborhood. So it acts as a sort of community Yelp or community recommendation for places to eat, places to go, other than the Brooklyn Museum, what to see in the general area. And of course, if you're looking at it on a location-aware device, you can immediately see, what's closest and how to get there from the Brooklyn Museum. So I just sort of wanted to give that example to start us off with kind of a concrete sense of what kinds of things this might be useful for. There are a lot of other aspects to location-based services besides location-aware devices, and some of the other panelists will be talking about those. But I'm going to leave it to them to get into the specifics of those. So I'm going to let each panelist introduce themselves and talk about their background and then do their presentation. So just as a reminder to the panelists, looking for around 10 minutes each. And I'll give you reminders from the back when we're getting up on that. So Gloria Bell, I think you're up first.
Hi, my name is Gloria Bell. I am the Director of Social Media for Human Capital Solutions. We are the producers of the Social Media Plus conference. And I also do some freelance social media consulting with basically small to mid-sized companies, helping them figure out how to get their name and brand in front of a whole lot more people. So, want to do introductions or go ahead and go in? Perfect. Okay, can we switch over to... as Ivan said, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit tonight about FourSquare. First of all, who in here is already on FourSquare? just a handful of people. All right, Ivan told you a little bit about what the background is. I'm going to tell you a little more, and knowing the story of how FourSquare came about helps you understand a little bit more of how it can be used. It originally started with a group of 20-something friends in New York who got tired of paying all the charges to send out 20 text messages on a Friday night when they were going from one restaurant to another bar to the movie theater to wherever they were going. So they wrote a program called Dodgeball, which got bought by Google and got set on a shelf. So what they came up with in its place was FourSquare. And what it allowed them to do was to go to a location, check in, and share that information with their friends. And it also allowed them to either get a notification on their device that my friend Amy checked in at the Brooklyn Museum, or it allowed them to get a text message, or they could post it to their Facebook or their Twitter. So that's what FourSquare allows us to do. And I'm going to go through, what I did was do a few screenshots for you, some from my phone, some from the web, to give you an idea of what FourSquare can do and some ways that it's being used. This is a shot. When I enter my FourSquare app on my smartphone, this is what immediately comes up. It tells me where my friends are. And it is not everybody I know. You can select who you want to follow, who you want to allow follow you. And as you go somewhere, you check in, as I've circled down here at the bottom. And what checking in means, when I hit check in, it's going to locate where I am and tell me what venues are set up on FourSquare that are close to where I was. Okay, today I happen to be on Chestnut Street in Old City, and so it's telling me, here are the venues that are set up on FourSquare. And as you can tell, they're very diverse. Everything from restaurants to businesses to Elfress Alley Museum, lots of different locations. Once I pick the location where I am, I'm going to check in. And it asks me, what am I up to? I get to put in, like when I checked in here tonight at the Friends Center, I put in that I was at NetSquared. You can put in any kind of message you want, and you have the option of having it just go to your FourSquare followers, going to Twitter, or going to Facebook, if you'd like to notify your audiences there. And you can add photos. It lets you put a lot of different media there. So once I've checked in, this happened to be where I was having lunch this afternoon, I've now checked in here. And as you can see, some of the things that they can do, the loyalty special, okay, I've now checked in at this restaurant. This restaurant's learned that if they set up a special on FourSquare, somebody checks in, I now get a bonus for being there. There's also 29 tips there, and I'm going to talk about tips in a minute because they're really, really relevant to a lot of what you're doing with your particular venues or with events that you have. A couple of other examples. Independence National Historical Park, Living History Museum. They have a venue. People can check in. They can leave photos. So what's happening is everyone that checks in at this venue is sharing their experience. They're becoming brand advocates for you to their entire networks. They're saying, I liked this place enough that I want to let other people know about my experience there. And I've put this up. It's actually a shot from the FourSquare web application, and it is probably the best case study ever on using FourSquare. And it's Visit PA, and I will tell you this was done by their advertising agency working with Visit PA, but their advertising agency only gave them advice. They're actually managing, Visit PA is managing this campaign themselves. And they've put money into it. They have purchased the option to buy badges, but anywhere you go in Pennsylvania, you have the opportunity to get tips that were placed there by the Pennsylvania Tourism Commission. You can earn badges for checking in at historical sites so many times. It's a game. And what has been interesting is you get a little addicted to the game. You realize, oh, wait, I only have one more check-in and I get a badge. You know, everybody likes, you know, the little free stuff, the fun stuff. And the one thing I wanted to point out to you, as you can see, they've chosen all of these different venues all over the state of Pennsylvania, and they've thrown up tips that are from Pennsylvania tourism, and it's to encourage people to go. But the number that I think is really impressive is at 85,933 followers. That means that there's that many people on FourSquare who are following Visit PA and playing their game. So a couple more venues here. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how you set up a venue. How many of you have a physical location that your organization works out of? Okay. What you can do, if it hasn't already been done for you, because the nice thing is anyone can set up a venue, and I would almost bet if you have a venue that people visit, someone's probably already set it up for you. And you're just not even aware that it's there, because people who play FourSquare, who are involved in it, if I go somewhere that's not already set up, I'm adding it so I can let people know I've been there. It's very simple. It's the name of the venue, the address, and that's all that has to be put in for someone to check in. Red Cross Donation Center, 107 people have checked in since that was set up. National Constitution Center, 3,097. And what you have to think about with this is everyone that has checked in has shared that information with their network of people. They've now put your organization's name in front of everyone they're connected to. And that's nothing better than free advertising, because that's what you're getting. It costs you nothing to set up a venue on FourSquare. Jenkins Law Library. Andrew's not here tonight. I did that specially for him. The other thing that you can use for, how many of you run events of any kind for your organizations? Handful of you. What is really interesting that is a really great way to help anyone who is interested in your organization or attending your event spread the word and get your name in front of their networks is to set up a venue, just like the Blue Cross Broad Street Run, for your event and let people check in at your event. Costs you nothing to add the venue. It costs you printing of a few signs to tell people to check in on FourSquare. And it's a great, very, very, very low-cost way to help your brand advocates, people who are already interested in you, people who already are involved, who like what you're doing, for them to share it with their networks. This is a brand new one. It was actually just set up last night by my friend Mark Magliacco. He works with the Pancreatic Cancer Network, and they have their walk next month. So he's already set up the Purple Stride Philadelphia Walk. And they'll have signage throughout their check-in stations and throughout the walk encouraging people to check in. Someone checks in, it gets shared with their network. That's a few more people who are going to learn about your event, your organization. PodCamp Philly, this was an event that we just did last weekend. And the interesting thing was because anyone can set up a venue, we had a couple different venues, so there's not a lot of check-ins on our official one. Because the organizers were all a little busy and we didn't set it up ahead of time, which we should have done. So there's a couple rogue ones with check-ins, and then there's our official one with a few check-ins. And this is an example of what, when someone has shared a check-in on FourSquare and being sent to their Twitter account. This is the message that comes up. Whatever it was that they put in the here's what we're doing, it says where they are. So now you've got your organization, your location, your event, that name officially in front of all of these people. How many other people are checked in there? And a link to take them right to your FourSquare venue page. And I told you we're going to talk a little bit about tips. I went through, these are a couple of other screenshots from Elfress Alley. As you can see, they run specials. If you check in, you get a discount. There's the check-in special. So I've now checked in. When I check in, I unlock that special. I'm now going to get a discount to my admission. And tips. As you can see, one of them was put up by Pennsylvania Tourism. Every other tip there was
from someone who visited the location. They're saying, here's something really cool, here's something interesting to think about while you're here. And I'll tell you, I'll give you a little hint. I helped run a film and music festival last year, and it was in venues all over the city. And one of the things we did for the 30 days before our event was every venue, I went in and put in a tip that says, hey, by the way, our event's coming to this venue, here's the dates, here's our website. So I got lots of free promotion. Every time somebody checked in through Johnny Brenda's for a month before our film and music festival, they got this tip that the film and music festival was coming up and how to go buy a ticket. And that's FourSquare. Perfect.
Cool. Thank you, Gloria.
You're welcome.
So, does anyone have any clarifying questions you want to?
Yes, it does have. It is possible. Yes, if you actually own the venue, you actually can put in a support ticket to FourSquare and they will actually consolidate all of the entries for you.
Yeah, it's sort of on a similar vein. If anybody can make a FourSquare check-in entry, what's to stop someone from going to an address and saying it's something that it's not?
Technically, nothing. FourSquare does have a process where they check venues. Depending on how many venues get created in a certain time period, they may be very current or they may be a little behind on it. The other thing is I couldn't set up a venue right now for somewhere in Old City because the GPS in here is going to tell FourSquare I'm at this location. So I would actually need to be at that location to set up the venue. So at or near that exact address.
It's not anonymous. You have to register to be a user. There's no anonymous use at all, unfortunately, right? Except for browsing, kind of like what you're doing.
Right.
So,
actually, that browsing wasn't even anonymous because I had to be logged into my account to be able to do the searches.
So yeah, I suspect it's pretty easy to fake stuff, but pretty easy also for them to shut people down to do it repeatedly.
And I will say FourSquare is actually very good. If you discover that that's happening and you submit a support ticket, not only will they take down those venues, but they will also close the account of whoever set them up. They're pretty responsive about it, which is, not necessarily considering it's a free service. You're not paying anything to use it. Their customer service is actually very good. Yes?
Did you say something about paying for the badges?
Yes. If you want to run a full campaign like Visit PA did, where you set up badges that people can earn that are your specific badges, like there's a lot of brands. Starbucks has about 10 different badges that today I earned the 16 candles badge because I checked in on my birthday at Starbucks. And that is a paid campaign. That is actually FourSquare's monetization, is if you want to run a full campaign, branded pages, badges that people can earn, that is a paid service.
Other questions?
So, besides the satisfaction of having earned a badge, what do badges get you, or is it really just the pursuit of getting
It's just the gamification is all with the badges. Now, the other thing is there are, as you saw, companies that will give you something, a percentage off
or maybe you get, it's a restaurant and you check in, you get a free appetizer, or the whole thing I didn't get into because it takes a little more explanation is the whole idea of this is actually a game, and the idea behind it, and I've actually had this work in real life for me, where the idea behind it is let your friends share with your friends where you are. And I've actually had several instances where I've checked in someplace and it turns out that a friend has been 2 doors down or around the corner and has come and joined me. And that's the whole idea behind it, is I want to share the fun things that I'm doing with my friends. The other, and Ivan had touched on this, is becoming a mayor. If you're the person who's checked in at a venue, in fact, I became the mayor of the Friends Center tonight. I thought that was kind of interesting. When you check in the most times at a location, you become the mayor. And there's a lot of organizations that have set up something special for their mayor. We run events where the mayor has actually, gotten preferred seating or preferred parking, or, they get a special little badge to wear. There's lots of very creative things that you can do with the gamification side of it that don't cost you anything. Or it's not costing you anything more than if you were putting a ticket in the newspaper for $10 off your admission. You're just doing it here.
That's great. Thank you.
Does FourSquare treat not-for-profits any differently than
No.
it treats? Okay.
No. I mean, the only difference that you are ever going to see is it's not likely that a not-for-profit is going to go out and spend the fairly significant amount of money to run a huge campaign like Visit PA did. Pennsylvania Tourism, I can tell you the badge packages are not inexpensive. But there's other things that a not-for-profit can do. I mean, the Purple Stride Walk is a great example. That cost them no money. It took Mark about 5 minutes to set it up. And they're going to get tremendous promotion because they're going to encourage everybody that comes to the walk who's on FourSquare to check in, and that now gets shared with all their networks. So when I go to this walk and I check in at the Purple Stride Walk and I share it with my network, I'm letting people know this is a cause I care about. And I want you to know I care about it and I'm actively involved. And that's the biggest plus for a nonprofit, is, making these people who already care about what you're doing and are already, passionate about it, giving them one more avenue to share it with their networks.
All right, so just in the interest of time, I think we're going to move on. But thank you, Gloria, for your presentation on your birthday.
I just wanted to mention before that we're very informal here. We didn't build in a break, and so you're expected to go and eat the food, and the panelists won't be offended.
Please do.
While we're talking to them. So.
All right, so we're going to move on to Robert next, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Thanks. Are these all on, or are they mostly for the recording?
They're on.
Okay. Yeah. Good evening. My name's Robert Cheetham. I am the founder of a company called Azavea. We're a local firm based here in Philadelphia. Despite being just a few blocks away, I was obviously late. We specialize in building location-based applications for web and mobile systems and work in a number of different areas. I'm going to talk about, I think Gloria did a great job of giving some pragmatic, practical advice about a contemporary location-based service, FourSquare. I'm going to give somewhat a different type of talk. I'm going to talk about the results of a National Endowment for Humanities research grant that we worked on over the past year around a topic called augmented reality. How many people here have heard of the term augmented reality? About half of you. So this is I'm going to flip through very quickly an introduction to the data that we worked with on this. This was essentially a small, what's called a digital humanities startup grant, where they basically pay us to try something out for a small amount of money, do some experiments, build prototypes, write a white paper on the results, and talk about what works and what doesn't work. And there were certainly some things that worked and didn't work, and I'll try and talk about those briefly. Like I said, we're Azavea. We're about 30 people, mostly based here in Philadelphia, but we work all over the United States. We have we're what's known as a B corporation. We have a pro bono program. We're kind of a for-profit with a nonprofit mission. Our mission is around applying geospatial data technology to improving communities, and there's a number of things that cause us to be a B corporation. The project that I'm going to talk about, this augmented reality work, is based on a database that the city of Philadelphia has been building over the course of several years for their historic photographs, a project called Philly History. How many people here have heard of Philly History? I'm going to flip through this fairly quickly, about half of you. This is a project that started about 5 or 6 years ago. The archives looks a lot like this, the municipal archives. Their photos are organized a lot like this, but they had something that's very interesting about them. They go all the way back to the mid-19th century. They had an address attached in a logbook to every single photograph that the city had taken through their photography unit. And they felt like they had some real opportunities to leverage that. They have a serious conservation problem, and not a lot of people could access the photographs that they had. They didn't even actually know how many they had. They estimated around 1 to 2 million historic photos. And like many places, perhaps not like all of you, but they had funding challenges and limited resources and wanted to find ways to potentially generate revenue from their photographic collection. So here are some examples of some of those photos. If you've lived in Philadelphia a while, you might recognize some of these in different form today. So we were brought in to build an application called Philly History. Philly History took all of these location-based, location-stamped historic photographs and historic maps, started digitizing them. We started with only about 75. We're now up to about 95,000 photos. And then make them available to the public via location. Location being the key thing that a lot of people wanted to know. They want to know what historic photographs are around their house or business. So this is what the website looks like today. There's a map there, and you can zoom the map in and out and search your photos and enter an address and so on. And they sell these photos, so they raise some revenue from this. Like a lot of places, digital humanities organizations, they license and sell things that will enable them to raise a little bit of money, and that helps to underwrite the ongoing conservation and operation of their systems. They were also an early experimenter with mobile applications. There's a mobile version of this. It's a pre-App Store, web-optimized, smartphone-optimized website at phillyhistory.org/I. And there are now about 5 organizations, like I said, 95,000 historic photographs. They get around 13 to, in a good month, upwards of 20,000 visitors a month, and a fair amount of traffic. So, augmented reality. We went down this path. We felt like we had a really amazing collection. We had some wonderful partners that could help us attempt to use this technology. We were aimed at trying to basically take a lot of the sensors. A lot of us think of this as a phone and perhaps a web browser and an application machine, but another way to look at it is as a sensor-packed device, almost like a tricorder in Star Trek. There is an accelerometer in here, a compass, a GPS device, a Wi-Fi, an audio sensor, a camera is a kind of sensor for vision. Augmented reality combines a lot of these sensors in order to overlay location-based information on top of the camera image that you can get off the camera on a phone. So it takes orientation and compass and the GPS location and attempts to, based on that location, as you pass the camera over a scene, be able to augment that view of the scene with additional digital information. So the goal here was to try to enable people to literally walk through the city and pass their phone over a particular area and see the historic photographs come up in their particular, in the appropriate location, and be able to pin that in 3-dimensional space. So to take the photo and really show you what it used to look like. That was our goal. Now, from a mission perspective, we were trying to connect people with their present physical experience of the environment with what had previously existed, and bring some of the rich geography components from the Philly History database. So here's a few examples of people working on this. This is not a new concept. It really goes back to the 80s and 90s, but the phones that could take this on, that had the GPS and other sensors, are really only a few years old. The first one was an Android about 2 or 3 years ago, and iPhone followed very quickly after that, as well as the programmable APIs that let you basically hijack the camera image and overlay additional things on top of it. Here's a photoshopped version of what the Museum of London called the Street Museum that was rolled out in May of last year. This is not actually what you see. This is a little idealized version of what could be possible. And a lot of it's focused on what additional things are out there, as well as what used to be there, as well as potentially what could be, even as a design tool to be able to show, let's say, an art exhibit that's literally only virtual and you would only see through a location-based phone. So Philly History, we had this grant from the National Endowment for Humanities. We partnered with some local historians in the Encyclopedia of Philadelphia project, and we had about 500 of those 95,000 images that we took and pinned in space, in three-dimensional space. Here's what the app looks like, or I should actually say looked like. A splash screen, and here's in a landscape view what that historic photograph looks like when it's opaque, laid against a particular streetscape. John Wanamaker store. This is the corner where the Hard Rock Cafe is. You saw this photo a little earlier when I flipped through those. Center Square. There's then a couple of other views that in some ways, in certain circumstances, were actually more convenient. One that simply tracked your location on top of a base map, and showed you the assets that were around that particular location. The other, just a simple list view, and on the far right-hand side, you'll see the 86 feet and 131 feet. That literally changed in real time, almost like you had a metal detector as you walked down the street. But instead of detecting metal, you were detecting proximity to where these historic images were. So this is a tablet view using the iPad 2. The iPad 1 didn't have a camera, so we couldn't do this with that, but a few examples of what this looks like. We ran into tons of challenges. A lot of this grant was around trying to make things happen that hadn't been done before. Getting things pinned into three-dimensional space was one of the hardest things. You can see two different perspectives here. One of those is the photograph itself flat, and the other has been angled, literally like a billboard against the background images. We did this with Google Street View, and we basically, Google Street View, if you look at the API, will report back to you the pitch, yaw, zoom, and other information. And so we had our wonderful archives interns who do all the scanning and data entry work for the project. And for some of the best photos, when they found one, they would take Google Street View, zoom in, pan to just the right location, pin it, and then we would use the API to pull out the pitch, yaw, and zoom perspective on it. That's how that worked. There were some issues with that. Here are a few examples. We run into some scaling problems, even if you can get the position right, getting the scale of the photograph right against the background sometimes was impossible, and we actually saw differences between the way Android and iPhone dealt with this. We also ran into things we didn't expect. Had to do some digging up of geometry and trigonometry textbooks, trying to. What we learned was that the camera lens has a certain view cone, and figuring out which direction that's looking, and figuring out what you should be showing when potentially you have thousands of potential images. How deep should that cone go, and what should you show in front was a fairly complex problem. I'm not going to go through all of this, but we did write a white paper on this, and it's available online. We faced a struggle with, we told NEH we'd do 500, but when we got into it, we thought, well, we got 90,000. Why wouldn't we do that? How hard could that be? But it caused lots of problems. Big was not necessarily, and comprehensive was not necessarily better. We ended up having to come up with a hierarchy of types of information we had about each image. And you get these strange situations where there might be 100 different possible images that you're looking at and trying to figure out where that should end and what should come in front and how you should display those things. It's a big deal. But there's a white paper. You can go to our website at azavea.com/augmented-reality and we also wrote some blogs on the subject. Some cool things coming down the road are that will overcome some of the other problems we ran into. One of the things we realized was that the camera itself, even if you've got a really steady hand, the GPS signal is bopping around so much, particularly in a downtown area, that you get this jitter in the image. And there's some of the newest phones have got a gyroscope built into them, and that enables the phone to get a much steadier view on what it's doing. We ended up using a commercial package to do some of the work we did. In retrospect, that was a big mistake. We think there's a real opportunity here to build an open source toolkit for digital humanities organizations. And we had lots of ideas we generated around better ways to do pinning. And I'll close with people doing this. You get some surreal sorts of things where people are kind of walking around the street with their iPads and cameras going like this, trying to find the data behind it. But we had a lot of fun. Thanks.
So, any questions for Robert? Keeping in mind we're going to have some time for full discussion later on. But any initial questions?
What happened to your apps that I saw crossed out?
That's a great question. Part of what is, I think, healthy is to acknowledge when things don't work and to think about how they could have been better. We released the apps in February for beta testing. We got a lot of great feedback. People had a good experience. We actually did some public tours with them for a conference that was visiting here in Philadelphia called the Museum and the Web. Got great feedback. It was a lot of fun. But we were using a toolkit from a company called Layar, based in the Netherlands. And Layar has its own database, but they also enable you to white label your own augmented reality application as long as you conform to a particular data standard. So we built some web services to conform to that data standard and serve up the data the way it needed to be done. The problem was their toolkit that you white label is a separate download on the applications. And every time they changed it, it wasn't versioned. It's not to dig into the software engineering of it, but they aren't versioning their application. And so every time the app downloaded a new version, and a lot of people have that set to automatically download updates, it broke the augmented reality application. So the Philly history thing is built on top of a toolkit. The toolkit updates itself, which then breaks all the interfaces and broke the application. There was no money for ongoing support. So this is one of the things that led us to feel like the lack of control that we had of the toolkit we used, which was the best toolkit at the time and still probably is, led to a lot of problems and would have been a real resource burden on an ongoing basis for the Department of Records. So unfortunately, we felt like the best thing to do was to take it down.
So it's just not available at all now?
The data stream is still there. We could build against it, and we think that the data standard that Layar came up with is not bad. Philly history is obviously still there. There's still a mobile application for it, and we still have the source code we wrote, which we'd be happy to share, but frankly, we wouldn't recommend using the approach that we did. Our next steps are to try to come up with some funding around building something that would be more open and would enable folks to have a more sustainable and high-quality user experience.
Other questions? Yeah, are there gatherings, whether a forum setting or conference, that consider how augmented reality can be applied to various social settings? I mean, not a gathering of augmented reality technicians who look at the minutia of the technical and look at the technical aspects of it, of AR, but who look at how to apply it to other walks of life.
That's a great question, and I am guilty of diving into the technical questions here a little bit. There are both AR-focused technology conferences where people are getting together periodically to try to come up with a set of standards and tools to do this sort of thing. We've seen this kind of work discussed in a number of different forums. There was a presentation at the Online News Association conference in Boston last week, ONA. News media organizations are interested in this, not from the perspective of showing historical images, but of showing news information about a particular location. And as hyper-local news becomes an important part of local news media coverage, that's of interest. This has been a topic at a number of digital humanities conferences, from that camp to, which is run by George Mason University, to some of the other archives and museums type conferences. Museum and the Web, which I mentioned earlier, did a whole session on augmented reality applications this past spring. That moves around each year, but is a really nice conference for people working in digital humanities. And I think this will be. I think this technology is very rapidly evolving. I think a lot of the toolkits are not really ready for prime time, but the sky's the limit in terms of the ideas and ways in which this could be applied to enhance people's experience of their environment.
How did you determine what 500 photos you were going to use? I can imagine that would.
That's a great question. We have a public historian on our staff who manages the Philly History Project. She's been on the project for about 5 or 6 years. We already had a featured photo stream that was an RSS feed, as well as a data set that had an API against it that is used in the application. So on an ongoing basis, as people are scanning images, when they see an awesome image, they tag it with that featured photo, and they may even queue it up to show in the slideshow that appears on the Philly History homepage. So we had a great collection of things that were already good, that we knew about. We then partnered with a few different folks. One was Amy Hillier, who's a professor at the School of Design at Penn, and has done a lot of work around neighborhood history and other aspects of Philadelphia history. As well as a group based at Rutgers Camden called the Encyclopedia of Philadelphia, and they sifted through a lot of what was there. We didn't just pick 500 that were high quality and then pinned those in 3D. We picked 20 that were very good, that were in the downtown area, and then part of the grant went to pay graduate students to write articles for the encyclopedia, as well as very miniature versions of the articles to add some context and get a sense of how are we going to overlay photo with text, with more detailed text, and link that together with larger collections. So that was a component of the project as well.
Any other clarifying questions? All right. Well, next we're going to move on. Well, first of all, thank you again, Robert. Next, we're going to move on to Rachel, who I think is going to be talking about ways to build some of our own maps and location-based data.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Whedon. I work for a company called Esri. Esri's based right outside Philadelphia, but we're a nationwide company that focuses on IT, GIS, geospatial technology. So some of you might have heard of GIS. Probably everyone's heard of maps. But we're a software company that focuses on products that help people get value from using geospatial technologies. So what I wanted to do today, actually, and this is a topic that I'm really kind of interested in and excited to share with you, is about how some of you can get started using GIS, geospatial technologies, and map making in your own practice, whether it's for the organization you work with, your personal use that you're interested in, volunteering, whatever it is that you do where geography matters. I hope to show you some tips and techniques that will help you. So the topic for tonight and the two presentations we've seen have really been great examples of location-based services. And depending on the audience, sometimes people make a distinction between geographic information technologies and location-based services. I think that one thing that they have in common is that they all use geography as kind of a critical factor. So whether you're on FourSquare and you want to see which check-in places are nearby, or you need a way to find out which historical images are near your house, they're all geographic questions in nature. So that's one of the things that excites me about what I want to share with you, is that my background is in geography. That's what I went to school for. So for me, being able to share with people how geography can help them solve problems or look at things in a new way is always something that I'm interested in sharing. So probably a lot of you know that maps are intuitive. Sometimes certain information is just better communicated on a map. What's near me? How do I get to a certain place? What are the distribution of my customers or my membership? What crimes have occurred in my neighborhood? That's information that we would probably jump to look at a map first before looking at a spreadsheet or a database. And I'll take it a step further and suggest that maps are really a great platform for communicating those types of topics, but also for collaborating. So if you're looking for opportunities to take information that has a spatial component like an address or a location, and you'd like to find ways to do problem solving in your organizations or share ideas or do outreach, maps are often a great way to do that. It's probably much more common now that you visit websites and see maps used on websites that you had never seen before. Whether it's a small map that helps you see what's near you at that location, or how do I get to a place. When I was looking on the Philly NetSquared site before coming here, that map was right there to show me where the location was. So we see those types of uses more and more commonly. So whether it's a simple map that helps us locate things or places that we're interested in, or if it's a more robust or intelligent map that helps us solve real challenges, like probably a lot of you work for organizations where you have limited resources, whether it's kind of human capital resources or financial resources, you need to find ways to work smarter with things. So using maps and geography to help answer questions like, where should I set up health clinics to meet an underserved population? Or like the city of Philadelphia faces sometimes, I need to reduce resources, I need to close libraries or fire stations. How can I use geography to help me make those decisions in a better manner? And because maps are a great kind of communication platform, whatever it is that you want to reach out and communicate to the public, whether it's me as an individual communicating with my social network, or an organization who wants to communicate to the customers, the constituents it serves, maps are a really great platform for doing that because, like I said, they're intuitive, they're visually interesting, and it's a great medium for that. How many people in the audience have wanted to make a map for something they've done before? Yeah, probably a lot of people have that for personal reasons. If I'm planning a party or a wedding, I need to tell people how to get there. Maybe some of you have wanted to do that through your organizations. You've kind of inherently thought, well, a map or geography could help me solve this problem. And probably in the groups that you work for, people all up and down that organization have wanted to make maps. Executives might want to see a map to see, well, where is our biggest fundraising money coming from? Your colleagues might want to make maps to figure out how they can plan their outreach programs or how they plan their race event. So probably people all up and down your organization and in your social and personal experiences have had occasion to think, a map would be really useful. So the other question that I like to talk to people about is, where do you go when you want to make a map? Does anyone pull out their pencil and paper, slide rules, compasses, those sorts of things, colored pencils? Probably not so much anymore. Most people go online, obviously. And a lot of people have experience with very quick mapping programs that you can use very easily. I saw on Seth's slide earlier, he had his Google map showing the Philly NetSquared location, so he obviously had a go-to spot when he needed to make that map, and probably a lot of us have those go-to spots. But one of the challenges with that is we don't often make maps or need to share geographic information in isolation. The idea of collaboration becomes really important. So if Seth made that map of Philly NetSquared locations and he wanted to share that, and someone said, I just started my own group, I need to add that to the map. Or someone says, this group's not active anymore, let me take that off. People need to share and collaborate information. It's helpful to have a common starting point. So what I want to do is share with you an open platform that many of you can use now to get started as a destination if you want to find mapping information or even make your own maps that you can use as individuals, you can use in your organizations, you can use as a collaboration platform and outreach to the public also. And the tool that I want to introduce to you is ArcGIS Online. That's the name of the application that Esri developed. That's a online destination. I'll give you a quick tour in a minute where you can go to find and organize and share your own content. So if I have a great map that I want to put out there for other people to see, or a great layer of information that I want people to know about, I can do that. Or I can find other great maps and other information that people have shared. And I'll show you that it's a really great kind of collaborative platform for finding that type of information. Once I find data that's interesting to me, what do I do with it? Well, I need a tool that will help me make a map. I want to be able to not just create simple maps, but more robust applications as well. I want to be able to layer information to tell a story or to solve a problem. So I need tools to do that. And then the idea of all of us having our different places where we go to make maps means that I need to be able to do that across multiple platforms. So I might go on the web to make a map. Gloria might go on her smartphone to use maps. I need to make sure that anything I create or share can cross all those different devices. So ideally what I want to do is I want people to feel like they have options when they want to make maps to help them communicate their story or their mission or their cause or their event or their favorite restaurant. And using ArcGIS Online is going to be a really easy tool to get started. So I'm going to jump to the website. You can go to arcgis.com. It's a free website. You need to register with an email address to do some of the data saving and searching and sharing. But once you're on the website, it's fairly easy to get started. We've really designed this as a website for people who are new to geography and new to map making to use. So it's kind of hard for a lot of us at Esri to wrap our heads around. We've been doing GIS for a long time, so it's definitely a new audience for us in some ways. So I'm also interested in getting your feedback on the site. Starting with some keyword searches helps me discover what's already out there, right? And I can find things that are maps, meaning data sets that people have shared that have some sort of spatial relevance, applications like some that Azavea has created that are promoted here. And you can see there's already this idea of social. I can start to rate, comment, and view the data. And so right away I can jump into these applications and maybe discover something new about ways that people are using geography. Or I can kind of get started and do my own thing, which is what I'm going to do here. So this is our map authoring tool. It's almost like a canvas, a geographic canvas that we can use, almost like a geo-collaboration platform. So the first thing I want to do is find a location that's of interest to me. I'm just going to go to New Jersey because I want to bring in some relevant data that might relate to some current events. I'm going to show you how people use geography in the recent flooding and hurricane events that we had, just as a quick example. So once I'm in my location, I can start to style my map. I can make it what I need it to be. I can change the view. Some of you are familiar with the way some of these maps might look. Get it looking exactly how I want it to. And then I can start adding in the different layers of information that make it relevant for me. So I can start searching for the different types of content that I might want to add. So in this case, I'm interested in how public safety responders... I can't type and talk at the same time, sorry about that. How public safety responders might have operated with geography during the hurricane, that sort of thing. So I did a keyword search for evacuation routes, and you can see some of the results. These are all different items that I can add to my map. And the idea is, again, that we're looking for sources of information. FEMA, hurricane evacuation routes, and I can add these, and I'm going to build these layers of information on my map that help me tell my story here. I can also search for other information, current weather. So if I wanted to look at current weather radar, I can start to add that in. I'm just going to zoom in here. And I can either use this map to, sorry, that looks pretty rough on the screen up there. I can use this map to either start exploring to discover information that's useful for me and my job, or I can use this map to, like I said, communicate a particular story or message. After I add in the content that's of interest, I'm going to save this map. That map then becomes almost like a commodity. It's something that I can share with people. I can pass it on to people for collaboration. I can access it via different platforms like smartphones, via social media. And I need to tag it so that people can find it. Then when we go to share that map, you'll see that I have a few different options. Obviously, I can link to it. That's a persistent URL that people who are interested in that content will be able to access. I can share it via social media. One of the interesting things is that you can actually use this map authoring as a starting point to create your own web applications. So if you're not familiar with developing web applications, we have these templates that help you get started. So how do I, as an organization, build a website that has interactive maps in it? Well, now it's as easy as authoring the map that I want, going to one of the templates that I'm interested in, and publishing an application. So this application will get published to Esri's website. In other words, it's a cloud-hosted service, meaning you don't have to use any of your own software or infrastructure to host it. And then you can access that web application through a number of ways. So I'll bring it up. You'll see it has a new look and feel because I used one of those templates. It has a unique URL so people can access it. And the template that I used in this case has some social media integrated into it. So if I wanted to provide people a way to do some overlays with things that are interesting to them, I could give them the ability to do this type of keyword search. And I can view some social media information that's coming in. Of course, I click on one that's like we were just talking about. You have to be careful with your content. The other way that I can share this information is by, actually, let me go back here to my page. The other way that I can share this information that might be relevant is that I can take that map and I can embed it in a website, which I think is going to be a really common use. So in other words, if I want to share this information, I can take that code, that HTML code, and post it into any HTML creator. In this case, I just have a blog that I use to demonstrate this. So that my interactive map will be embedded then on the website. So if you want to be able to create simple maps that you can share across your organization with your constituents, with your public, with your social networks, it's really easy to use ArcGIS Online to find content that's relevant, create your own content, save and share your maps. One thing I wasn't able to show you is that searching for data that's already out there is a great way to start, but if you have your own location-based information in your organization, like a spreadsheet with addresses or a GPX file from a bike ride you took the other weekend, all of that location-based information can be brought into the maps as well, so it makes it really easy to create those customized map products for you. One thing I want to mention also is that we have applications on the iTunes Store. If you're interested in finding ways to access these maps through your smart devices, if you download these applications, any map, actually let me go here, any map that you create on ArcGIS Online can be brought into your iPhone by browsing and searching just the same way you did on the website. And those applications, or those maps would be location aware, meaning that you can look for maps that are in the area where you are based on your GPS. That's another nice way to be able to give access to that type of geographic content. So I'll close there and take any questions.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
So just to start out with a question while I walk over here, are there any usage restrictions in terms of either type or amount?
With the free accounts, there's a limit to the amount of content that you can upload. It's 2 gigs. I've been using the site, and here's all the content that I have. Most files that you upload are going to be quite small, so that limit's probably not something that you're likely to encounter.
The part where you were showing with the comments, I mean, how does that work? And I mean, can people like interact with the map in real time, or just I didn't understand. I wasn't really clear on how that comment part worked.
So I think I mentioned that when I did a quick search result. If you do a keyword search, you want to explore what type of geographic content is out there, and I find this application, Philly Stormwater Billing. I can read about the application, I can view the application, and then depending on what I thought of the application, I can do some very quick things like give it a star rating, which is kind of that feedback loop, or I can enter a comment about that application. So it's just more of a kind of an online network to build community around the maps and apps.
But when you showed the map and then you showed like the little things where there were comments, that's
the tweets. Yep. Yep. So this was the idea that we can create lots of different templates to showcase our maps, and one of the templates we might want to integrate social media with it. So being able to integrate something like a search for keywords in a Twitter feed might be some extra functionality we want to add on top of the map.
Other questions?
Technical question. Mm-hmm. Can you add shapes to the maps? Your own boundaries, sales areas. That.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you can add content to the map in a lot of different ways.
For service areas.
Yep, you can either sketch on the map directly by this concept of map notes, which let you kind of sketch on the map yourself, or you can add files like a GPX, a CSV, or a shapefile, which is a common GIS data format. So depending on what level of location-aware information you have, there are lots of options to do that. Yep.
This is at ArcGIS?
ArcGIS.com, right. That's the website.
Can you pull in content from Google Maps?
Yep, you can bring in KML files, or KMZ files. So I guess that's what you meant, probably the type of format formatted data that Google Maps supports.
I was just wondering if you already created maps on Google. Could you pull them into ArcGIS to then, do whatever you want?
It'd probably be more a matter of bringing in the individual layers from Google rather than the entire map composition itself. So if you had a layer of landmarks in Philadelphia that was a KML file you had used in Google, you could bring that in, but you would recreate all of the other content probably one at a time.
I haven't heard the fourth person speak, but I'm already like bursting with ideas. The three of you, I can imagine what the fourth person is going to say. You should get together. You should get together and just mash up all of this technology.
There are some great events across the city that let people do. There's some great events across the city that let people do just that kind of hack events that let people who maybe are focused on location technologies kind of combine their areas of expertise.
So no questions, too stupid. Right? Wasn't that one of those? Do you run into issues with when Robert was talking about the updating of the API stuff? How does that work? If you update your system, do other users of this run into the same type of problem?
That's a good question. We launch a new release of this website almost monthly, and those releases are new functionality enhancements. So, for example, we might release a new template or a new functionality in the application. We document that. That's fully documented through the online help system, so you can always see what's new. But because it's a hosted website you're always visiting, you're always getting the latest version without having to worry about, well, what do I already have on my end that might be incompatible with it. So you're always accessing everything from the ArcGIS.com website.
Other questions? All right.
I'll just add, because Rachel's too modest to mention it, but for the nonprofits in the room, Esri has a number of other fairly advanced tools that go from the sort of simple online tool to mobile applications to desktop to server-based tools. And they offer nonprofit, for 501c3s, nonprofit, basically free versions of all of that software.
I did want to mention.
They also have donations through TechSoup. And it's a pretty generous program that leaves any nonprofit organization pretty much able to go from very simple things all the way to very advanced things at no cost.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the types of software that you might get through one of those organizations work hand in hand with these online tools. So it's kind of a complete system. They interoperate together. So it's a nice option for people who want to do more than the website allows.
Yep.
I'm just curious if it would be possible to use, if you have an application where you could, for example, build a scavenger hunt map with clues embedded on it for a fundraising event.
Yeah, that would be a great idea. That almost combines the question of can you kind of put your own data on the map. I have one example that might be kind of illustrate the point. This is the idea of a simple map. Not every map needs to solve the world's problems. Maybe I have a map like this in Wissahickon Park where I want to show landmarks. So imagine that you could go on this map and place those points or those clue locations, and then you can configure the content that shows in this pop-up through the web application. So if you want there to be a clue or a photo, people can just kind of click on the map and interact with it that way. That might be one way to approach that.
Okay, so I think in the interest of time, we'll keep moving and have more discussion after we hear from Cliff. And I think Cliff's going to be talking about some multimedia aspects to location-based services, and one particular one that he works with.
If anyone is hungry or thirsty, it may be a good time to get something to eat or drink while we test this setup. I hear there's cake.
Yes, please eat the cake.
The knife that built. Yeah, you're right. Taste that. Do you have any cake knives?
Oh yeah, put a knife up there. Please cut the cake.
There's 2 knives. Where'd they go?
Over here, yeah. What about the candles?
Well, that looks like, yeah, it's like you're getting there, you're getting set up.
first. You're welcome. You want the glasses? Okay. Is it free what? Free wonderful fun.
Oh, it's a quick game.
Yeah, it was scoreless until
Both of these. I'm like, I'm not going to be completely over the feeling 3 days.
There was a point where yeah.
Okay.
Very
We have an interactive
This is where the technical
yeah. Well, our controllers, I wouldn't worry about it then.
I love reading visual art.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's like an art form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Art is able to
is that better or worse?
Better.
Thank you.
These are going to go out in 5 seconds.
We don't have to go that dark.
Recently had some broken lighting so that we can't have the adjustments we usually do. So it's either all on or all off.
Is everyone all right? I'm sorry I made a bad decision with blue font. But
all off is better than all on?
Yeah.
So let's do that while clicking on.
All right. Hello. All right, we're on. Hey, first of all, thank you everybody for sticking around for lucky panel talker number 4 here. And this is just a really exciting time to be alive. When you think about all the things that you can do with that contraption that's in your pocket that we call a smartphone, it's just amazing. When you tie in location with media, with broadband internet, with the ability to record and share video and audio and photos and text, the world is just a different place, especially if you think about trying to take that away from you. If you're accustomed to using Google Maps on your smartphone and you're accustomed to checking Facebook on your smartphone and seeing what people are doing, and if you try to take that away, I would imagine you'd feel somewhat... Well, you would want your smartphone back. Anyway, I'm kind of an accidental entrepreneur when it comes to location-based services. My name's Cliff Stevens, and my company is Locadote, which is a mashup of the words local and anecdote. And we formed the company just this past May. We released our first iPhone app in April. We got the website up in March. But this started as an idea last spring, 2010. I was traveling, and my wife and I were up in Massachusetts, in Cape Cod. We weren't there before. And so we were driving around. The weather was terrible. We were listening to the radio. The music was bad. The commercials were just obnoxious. And I was thinking, this iPhone, that I have in my pocket has everything in it that would give me exactly what I want, which is I want to listen to the music that I want to hear, and as I'm walking or driving by places, I want to find out what those places are that would be interesting to me, whether it's a landmark or a building or a restaurant or whatever. And I want to have all that happen kind of on my terms, based on my interests, where I am, and what's near me. So that's where the idea came from. I'm not an iPhone developer, so I had to find some people to help me. But I told some people about this idea, and it resonated with them. And so I thought, well, let's build a prototype, and we did that last summer. And if you live or work in Center City, you probably saw me walking around somewhere with my little iPhone app and my iPhone, testing this thing out to see what it would be like to walk somewhere and hear audio about the place that you've just approached. So that's what Locato does. And so that's why Seth asked me to talk tonight about my experience with building this app and how it pertains to nonprofit organizations and how they might want to leverage some of the locative media, location-based services out there on the third screen, which is what sometimes people refer to the mobile as. Screen number 1 being your TV, screen number 2 being your desktop, screen number 3 being your mobile phone. So locative media is generally where multimedia and other content is delivered directly to the user of a mobile device dependent on their location. And the physical implementation of that media, however, is not bound to that same location to which the content refers. So in other words, you could be at home in your apartment if you want to, and you could be listening to or watching location-based media for some place where you are not, whether it's here in Philadelphia or across the ocean in London or something like that. And of course, locative media is applied to real places and thus triggering real social interactions. And I think ultimately that is what I wanted to accomplish with Locadote, was that as people wander around the world, the more they know about the places they go, the more interesting they become, and the more able they are to understand the people from those places and the things that they value and what they do. I think it just creates a more interesting world, one where, more peace, less war, that kind of thing. So talking about video, I thought I'd pull up and get a high-level view of video. I'm going to talk a little bit about location-based video and location-based audio. When you think about video, of course, the first thing that comes to mind is TV. And generally, people watch 136 hours per month of television. On the computer, people are watching about 18 hours a month, and now on their mobile devices, they're averaging about 4.3 hours per month. But if you want to see where things are headed, you look to the younger people. And people who are aged 12 to 17, they are averaging 7 hours and 13 minutes of mobile video per month. And what's happening is that this is the segment of video watching that is increasing most rapidly. 41% increase in the amount of video that people are watching on mobile devices since last year, and 100% more since 2009. So what I'll do is show you a couple of apps that are location-based video apps. And this one called Vidcinity I thought was particularly interesting because this is published by a company called vMix Media, which you'll see a little bit of information about in the footer there. But their app, Vidcinity, is pretty straightforward in that you run the app, you walk around, and it tells you in real time what videos are around you. And then you can touch the video, which you can see on the list screen in the middle. And what you'll see after touching it is on the right side there, which is a map of where that video is. And then you can touch the little push pin there, or maybe it's the image in the top left corner. You touch that image, and then the video starts playing. And what happens is you're actually seeing someone else's video that they have recorded and published to Vidcinity, and that's now being streamed to you through your app, wherever you are. So in terms of engagement, it's pretty cool. The difficulty with all of these apps is content. As we saw with FourSquare and Maps and everything, you have people who upload stuff that's not so interesting and or worse, and some other really good stuff. This is a really cool one. This is an app for iPhone. I think they may have one for Android, or they're working on it. But this is using video for crowdsourced news reporting, where you can run this app and you'll see the map there, and all those red push pins represent stories that someone has reported through MePorter. And it's not just video. You can upload video, you can upload photos, and, of course, text content. But as you'll see in the image to the far right, that is a detail screen of someone's story, and they have uploaded a video having to do with what the roads look like during the recent hurricane. And then these are a host of other apps for iPhone, some of which also exist for Android. But If any of you are familiar with Instagram, it's a photo sharing app where you can apply effects to the photographs. Same kind of thing with Vidi. When I was playing with it, it's actually a very impressive looking application, very professional looking. So that's a fun one. And Squawk Me is, they call themselves a mix between FourSquare and YouTube. I didn't have a chance to actually play with it, but could be interesting. And then Social Cam is an app where you get to take video, share it with your friends, and that's published by Justin TV, which some of you may be familiar with in terms of video sharing and the social aspect of that. And then Lowcast is kind of an interesting concept in that it's an instant social network right where you are. So it's kind of wherever you go, you might go to a concert or you might go to the park, and you can create your own time-sensitive social network based on your location and who might be running Lowcast around you, and then you can share messages, you can share video and photos. Again, not a strictly video location-based app, but it is a component of it. And of course, other ones, when you think about location and mobile and video, there's probably a lot of people, including myself in this room, who have used the Facebook mobile app, and of course you can share video that way with people who you're friends with. Quick is an app. They were bought by Skype earlier this year, but that is a real-time live video streaming app. So you can fire that up on your smartphone and start recording, and someone else either on the web or I think even in their Quick app can watch what you're filming in real time. And then there's Blurb Mobile, which I'm not all that familiar with, but I know it's a location-based video app. So those are some examples of apps that are out there that are location-based and focused on video. And then locally, the National Constitution Center built their own app. And though this app is not location-sensitive in that it's not using the GPS of your smartphone to find out where you are and then place stuff around you, they did build in videos into this app so that when you visit the National Constitution Center, you can watch videos based on the different galleries they have, and that augments your experience there at the National Constitution Center. And their model is the app is free. They do a couple of previews of some of the videos, and then if you want to watch the whole tour of location-based videos, then you buy each tour, and each one costs, I think, 99 cents. It's an in-app video tour purchase. So then, jumping into location-based audio, again, I thought I'd provide some high-level context. Every day, 90% of adults in the U.S. are exposed to some sort of audio media. 79% of those people hear it through broadcast radio or through satellite radio. And 37% of those people are hearing it via CDs, tapes. I doubt many people are listening to tapes anymore, but these numbers are from 2009, unfortunately. 19% through their desktop, and then 11% through some sort of portable audio. Now, of course, things are changing pretty quickly. On the left there, what I wanted to point out is that 2011 has been an amazing year for audio on mobile and audio in the cloud. Amazon Cloud Player, the Apple iCloud, and of course Google Music Beta are all kind of music repositories that exist in the cloud, and you can stream that music to your smartphone. And then on the right side are just a whole host of what you might call personalized or internet radio companies. Of course, there's one missing from that list, and that's Pandora, because I dedicated this slide to it. That chart in the top right that you see there is the growth in the number of people who are listening to audio on their mobile phone. It's a pretty impressive chart. Starting in December 2009, only 12% of people ever used their smartphone for listening to audio, and we're already up past, past 20.3%. Listen to music on their mobile device in July of this year. But again, if you look to how young people are using their smartphones and listening to audio, 28.5% of people aged 16 to 34 say that they usually or almost always listen to internet radio compared to broadcast radio. So if you're in the radio business, you need to keep an eye on this, obviously, and be doing something about it. Arbitron is an organization that tracks how many people are listening to radio stations, and already Pandora has a higher number of listeners in the 5 largest U.S. radio markets in the U.S. for people aged 18 to 34 than any of the broadcast radio stations in those 5 largest markets. And the number of people listening to Pandora on their mobile is now 60%. That was only 12% 2 years ago. So you can see the trends here. People are listening to audio on their mobile phone. And so let's get to the location-based aspect of that. The first app I'm showing you, sound tracking. I made this, I gave it its own slide just because I think it's a cool concept. In that the idea is whatever you're listening to and wherever you're listening to that, you can share that with your friends. And so you're essentially creating a mood for this place where you are, and people can listen to whatever it is you're listening at the same time you're listening to it. And so if you have a group of people, you're all hanging out at the National Constitution Center and you're listening to Black Sabbath for whatever reason, you can share that experience with people and they can hear what you're hearing. And so this is just showing you what those screens look like. You can tell the app what you're hearing by searching for a song, or the app can detect what song you're hearing outside, in the environment where you are, or if you happen to be listening to your iPod, it can detect what song is playing through the iPod and share that with whoever else is using sound tracking. You can attach a photo, and of course you geotag it so that your music that you're listening to is specific to a place. And then these are apps that are tour guide type of location-based audio apps. GeoTrio tours I found to be the highest quality. Those are curated audio tours, and I found that a lot of universities are using them. So for students who are visiting college campuses, one of the ways they can find out what it's like there is by listening to tours on GeoTrio. My tour guide, I think, has high aspirations. It's a nice user interface, but unfortunately there isn't a whole lot of content yet. And then the second two, the last two, Tuzla and Here Planet, what they're doing is a lot of text-to-speech audio. So there's a lot of content. You can go anywhere in the States or Europe and you can hear audio, but it's text-to-speech, so it's automated. It's a computer who's talking to you. And it just depends on the listener and whether or not that's the kind of thing they want to hear. I personally find it a little difficult to maintain focus on the content when I'm trying to figure out what the computer is saying to me. But it's not bad. And then there's some other apps down at the bottom, Geoloci, HipGeo, TagWhat, etc., that are tourist-related, location-based audio apps. And then finally, these examples are location-based audio apps. I refer to them as audio Twitter kinds of apps, where they basically open it up to anyone who has anything to say. And those are geotagged. And so with Broadcaster, they're out of New York. If you're walking around the city of Philadelphia or New York, you can use their GeoPlay feature where you can hear audio where it's triggered as you're walking around and hear people's stories, or you can select it from a map and listen to it that way. Shoudio is they're in Europe, but same kind of thing where anyone can turn on record and locate and record an audio file and publish it to their platform, and anyone else can hear it immediately who has Shoudio on their smartphone. And then Audio Boo is basically the same kind of thing, except they don't give you a map to look at. You look at a list, and you can sort that list based on location. And then finally, an example of location-based audio application here in Philadelphia, of course, is my company, Locadote. We're a location-based audio platform for mobile, and our catchphrase here, which you've been passing by. We're working with the Greater Philadelphia Tourism Marketing Corporation, Mural Arts, the Association of Philadelphia Tour Guides, Historic Philadelphia, and Nancy Gilboy, who published an audio walking tour called History Walks. And basically with Locadote, this is an iPhone app. You download it for free, install it, run it, and if you have autoplay turned on, you can be listening to music inside your iPod app. And if you come upon a location that has an audio file associated with it, your music and iPod will decrease in volume. It'll pause. You'll hear the interesting information about whatever it is you're walking by. And when that finishes,
your music volume unpauses and increases. Meanwhile, you haven't done anything. Your iPhone has been in your pocket the whole time. And you get to tell Locadote what kinds of things you want to hear. And my dream is that one day everyone will be able to go anywhere in the world and hear audio about interesting things around them in any language that they want to hear it in. That's where we're going. So that's all I have. Again, my name's Cliff. My company's Locadote, and we are looking for pilot partners. So if you or someone you know works for a museum, a park, tourist organization, etc., I would love to get you on board with Locadote and your location-based audio. And that's it. And just as a bonus, in terms of like the coolest location-based audio idea that I found, some of you may know this already, but there's a band called Blue Brain. They just released an album a few months ago called The National Mall, and it's the first location-aware record album. So you can download their app for free from the App Store. You can go down to Washington, D.C. It will only work there. You have to be in D.C. And as you walk around, the music you're listening to will actually change based on where you are and what's near you. Really crazy concept. I'm dying to give it a try, but I just had to throw that in there because it's a really unique way of using location-based audio, which is what this is all about. So, thank you.
So, questions? And we're going to get the lights back on? Yeah.
In general, how well available are these apps on Androids and Blackberries?
I unfortunately am biased in that my phone is an iPhone.
It's unbiased.
So all the ones that I showed you are available on iPhone. I would say maybe a quarter of them are also available on Android. There's probably others that are only available on Android that aren't available on iPhone, but all of these are available on iPhone.
Other clarifying questions for Cliff? And just to explain again, we're going to have a few minutes for asking Cliff clarifying questions and then open it up to discussion for all four folks.
Is your plan for Locadote to invite people to participate and contribute their own stuff, or to go after sort of the more high-quality, curated audio content?
Yeah, I love that question because when I first had the idea, I thought we'll just open the floodgates and let anyone, anywhere record audio. But I learned from some of the other mistakes that have been made with other apps in that when I was testing them, a lot of the audio content was really bad. So I changed my focus to really partnering with organizations who have a vested interest in creating really good location-based audio. So that's why I'm working with the organizations that I am, and why going forward, at least in the foreseeable near future, until there's a clear precedent set about the quality of the audio that's on Locadote, I want to work with organizations who will take care in the kind of audio they produce.
Good. Other questions for Cliff? Okay, well, why don't we move on to general discussion. Before we do that, though, I want to make the... Let me stand up here so you can see. I want to make the invitation that we make every month, which is after this event is over, a few of us will be heading out to a local bar headed by Denny in the back. She'll be leading the way. So not officially a part of the event, but feel free to come out and chat and join us if you like. So, discussion for all four folks. Just a question to kick off the conversation. Any or all of you, if you want to talk about privacy implications with location-based services, are there things we should be concerned about or thinking about organizationally, individually? How does that fit into policy?
Starting thoughts. Had this discussion a lot. It's a huge topic that you will hear discussed a lot, and I can almost guarantee that if you get into using some kind of location-based, you're going to get some kind of question from your constituents about privacy. And what we always tell the people we work with, what I tell my clients, is the message you need to relay
is for people to use common sense. Okay, I'm a very active FourSquare user. I'm actually in their super user program, which means I can set up things that the average person can't. But I use it with a lot of common sense. If I'm out by myself at night, I'm not going to check in. It's not safe, it's not common sense. And I think that's when you start getting questions from people about, well, what about privacy? I think that's the message you need to relay to them. Is just, be thoughtful. If you work with an organization that works with a lot of children, that maybe a location-based may not be the best option. If you're working with an organization where privacy is a huge issue, I did a little consulting with a group that does rape counseling. And they were, someone had given them the idea of using location-based to help spread the word on where their centers were. And my advice to them was absolutely not. That's absolutely the wrong audience to be sharing their locations with. So it's common sense. That's it, and that needs to be what you think about if you set up a program. It also needs to be the message that you relay to anyone that gives concerns.
I think that where I've seen that question come up is, I showed how more and more people are interested in promoting and sharing their data online. And the traditional standpoint was always more of like a hoarding. If I have this valuable information that's spatially aware, I want to keep it and get the benefit out of it myself. So the idea of sharing that data online and letting other people use it, maybe screw it up, use it for purposes you might not have intended, is definitely a new medium for people who are kind of traditionally in this field. So we have some of the same concerns. I'd love to share my evacuation routes for the city of Philadelphia, but what if someone puts it on a map and they share it with an audience that I wouldn't normally share it with, or what if they change it, or they don't use the right color? People have all those types of concerns with sharing the geographic content, but I think there's also that the idea of the online community being kind of self-policing when it comes to those sorts of things. So if someone creates a map that's very valuable, it gets promoted and talked about and shared. Someone creates a map or something that's not as valuable, it kind of doesn't get the focus. So that's one thing that I talk to people about when it comes to sharing content. So that's maybe not a privacy issue, but along the same lines.
There's a lot to say on the subject of privacy and location. I think we're going to have to go through a period where we will have to retrain ourselves as consumers as well as organizations to consider the privacy component of people's location as a part of how we operate. For projects like Philly History that I talked about earlier, we have, this is more out of fear of not offending people who might be concerned about their privacy. The city ends up capturing a lot of photography in the street, in public, and we have an internal rule that even if it's from the last 10 or 15 years, even if we know it was in the street and know it was in public, and it's got a recognizable person's face in it, and it's not a public figure, we just don't publish it. So that's an organizational rule that we came up with that has served us fairly well. I think as consumers, we have to be aware of the defaults that get set in a lot of the systems that we work with. Facebook's received a tremendous amount of criticism in the last several years over its default settings. Twitter added location-based information, but has, for the most part, kept it fairly fuzzy. It's off by default. But if you have location turned on in Twitter, you have to be aware that when you tweet, your location is being broadcast with the tweet, whether you realize it or not. And that location may be determined for you. It may be pulling it out of your phone, or it may be trying to figure it out from your IP address or other network information. So I think there's like a lot of new things we've had to develop new etiquette around how we communicate with people when as email group, for example. We've we've had to come up with new social mores around other aspects of our digital lives, and location adds another of those concerns that the best rule of thumb is what Gloria suggested, common sense. But there are more of these types of things and more places we have to be thinking about the common sense stuff. So it's quite a challenge.
I would just say from the perspective of an app developer, you have to invest some money in lawyers to help you write a privacy policy. And you also have to make sure that when you're building your app that you give users the ability to tweak their experience in the way that they want it, in the way that they want that experience to be. So whether it's privacy or the kind of content they want to see inside the app, as a developer, you want to make sure that you build in settings, so that your users can define the kind of experience they want to have with it.
Other questions for the panel? Any one of the panel or all of them?
I just have a comment. I don't know if you're familiar with Philoplace. You probably are. And looking at what Esri has developed, it seems like they basically anyone can do what Philoplace does using Esri, not at the same level. Of course, it's only 2 gigabytes of data allowed, but it's just amazing how quickly these things are changing. I mean, Philoplace is, 2 years old? And now I can go out and do the exact same thing, and it cost them $500,000 to do what they did. It's just amazing.
What's Philoplace?
Philoplace is a program set up by the Historical Society of Pennsylvania where they did storytelling. They would send a crew out to a community center, and they would have people come to the community center, bring pictures. They would scan all the pictures. They would film the people telling stories. And then I think it was a web company, I think Night Kitchen maybe? Developed a web platform where they put all of this information up. It was location-based and everything. But then they opened it up so that anyone could upload their own story to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really changing quickly. The idea that, first of all, to realize that people who aren't GIS professionals want to make maps is a pretty recent realization. So I think that, at least, Esri from a corporate perspective needed to figure out a way to provide for that. As a company, we're really invested in making sure people understand how geography can help solve real problems. And realizing that that's really quickly kind of exponentially grown beyond the, specialty realm. It's a big wake-up for us.
Other questions or thoughts?
I have an observation, and I'm not sure where the question really goes with it, but I noticed that with the panel and most of the attendees here, none of us are in high school. And yet it's really the high school age and young college age that's the sweet spot and the fastest adopters of the mobile and the location-aware technologies. And I'm wondering what the implications of that is. One of it, we talked about privacy, and privacy does have a generational aspect to it because of the assumptions made by younger people versus relatively older people in terms of how they regard privacy and the information they put out to the online world. So here's another area where there seems to be a more rapid uptake and acceptance of these sorts of applications among younger folk. And I'm wondering what the implications of that really is as we continue to develop these applications and opportunities. And it's a question for anybody if there's any thoughts about that.
I guess I'd respond by saying it depends. From a particular organization's perspective, I'd say know your audience. There may very well be situations in which there's that generational divide. There may be others in which there's not necessarily, or that divide shifts and changes over time as people mature and have professional lives, for example. They suddenly spend, and they don't win a job interview, let's say, because of something they wrote on Facebook, their concern about privacy probably radically shifts. But I saw a presentation, a seminar yesterday on gamification, and one of the anecdotes they told was about audience, and they were talking about public health applications being used in hospitals, and applying some of the techniques from FourSquare to gamify the experience of both workers and patients in the hospital. And for one audience, the nurses, the healthcare assistants, and so on, they really got engaged with that in a very positive way. And it was irrespective of age necessarily. They got very more excited about their work and got more engaged with their work through this overlay of gaming on top of that work, earning points and badges and so on. The doctors, on the other hand, it turned out, were very much not interested in this sort of thing. Causing doctors to compete against each other and have one be a winner and one be a loser was not in the professional sort of milieu, the sort of mindset that a doctor brings to the table. And so in the very same setting, two different audiences had completely different takes on the same concept. And I think that we'll probably see the same sorts of things play out, that in certain kinds of contexts, young people may pick something up and have a particular approach to it, or may glom onto it particularly rapidly, and other ways they won't. I had read some years ago that Twitter was in fact not being adopted by really young people, it was being adopted by people in their late 20s and 30s and 40s. That group as a kind of micro-blogging, publishing platform was a very compelling thing, whereas young people were a lot less interested in it. So these things are going to shift a lot over time, and I think it'll depend a great deal on the audience.
Well, I think it goes into very, very sound strategy when you're looking at anything revolving around social media. And I think everybody here that does this would agree, is you can't focus on any one thing. You can't say, I'm only going to use this one strategy, I'm only going to use this one platform, because your audience, especially if you're dealing with a diverse audience at all, is going to be in multiple places. So you need to look at, where is most of my audience and put most of my efforts there, whether it's location, whether it's, Facebook, whether it's your website, whatever it's going to be. You have to think broad instead of narrow.
Other questions?
Based on what you were saying about young people having different attitudes towards privacy,
I think that is going to be a half generation anomaly, and that's it. I don't think it's that young people don't care. I think it's that the set of people who are in their early 20s and late teens right now were never told by anybody else that this stuff is important. Because people that I know, like me, with little kids, I'm going to tell them they're not going to be getting social networking accounts at 4 and 6 and 8. They're going to be taught that of the dangers of privacy, sort of not caring about privacy and things. And I think that as the people who, as you said, are seeing the ramifications as they're going to tell their kids, and people who are reading stories now, I think it was a blip in time where people were like, I don't care about privacy, I'll post my pictures of my drunken whatever. So I don't think it's that people in their teens are always going to be doing that. I think 15 years from now, teens are going to guard their privacy very carefully, or something, more so than you think.
It's that shift of the half generation is probably a great way to put it, between all of us who are parents or slightly older, and we didn't really understand it and couldn't teach it to our kids. Mm-hmm. I mean, because I know with my own children, I have 2 that are in college, and when all of this first started happening, I didn't even think, and I do this for a living, I didn't think to have those conversations with them. And well, it didn't take very long of them being involved in me seeing a couple of things that they posted till they were getting regular, talking tos about, and constantly still do, about stop and think about what you post. And I think until
those of us that are in that parental age group understand it well enough that we can then realize this is something we have to share on a regular basis with our kids and teach them. Then, yeah.
Jenny?
I'll take my favorite position as devil's advocate,
which is that I think just the whole idea of whether the expectation of privacy is going to change dramatically, and that, you know, we're older, so we grew up when we expected it, and so, oh, someone's invading our privacy. But the younger generation, the younger people, like they, you know, there's an age group that's going to come up now that, first of all, it's all digital. That, and I'm not, I sound like really old, but like they won't even know how to write, you know, handwrite. No, but or add. But anyway, you know, their experience from the very beginning when they're babies, literally, on computers, and they're learning on computers, and their whole experience just from the start is very different. It's all digital. And so I agree with you in the short term, yeah, you know, the stupid things that people put on their profiles, they go for a job. Right now, it is an issue. But it's kind of like, and this is going to seem like a very bizarre analogy about tattoos and what, oh, you had a tattoo, you never get a job. Now, I mean, people have tattoos, CEOs, whatever, you know, I'm just saying, it's not the exact same thing, but it's the idea, it's a generational thing where, I don't know. I mean, I just think that the expectation of privacy is going to shift. I hate to be Mark Zuckerberg and, you know, repeat what he's saying, but it's just going to be when you grow up without really having it in a very large way, even though you can control some of it, but to a large extent, if you grow up with Facebook your whole life, I mean, I think it's just going to, you know, your mindset's going to change about, you know, or what is considered bad, you know, what, you know.
Well, I even see that in the slight generation. I mean, my kids are about to turn 20 and 22, and I have nieces and nephews that are much younger. And their, you know, expectation of what people will think of and what they can post online is even different from my kids. And there's only, you know, 6-8 years difference there. So I think you're right. I think that expectation, as they get used to this being the way their world's going to be, it's going to be very different.
Other questions or thoughts from folks?
I would just add a little bit on this conversation regarding privacy and how people are going to live with their expectations for privacy based on the technology that we're interacting with. We also have to remember that the systems themselves are going to evolve over time, and that we have a certain expectation for how we need our smartphone to work with us now and give us the privacy we expect, and the website to work a certain way. But over time, the systems we're interacting with are actually going to evolve too. They're going to know what we want ahead of time, so that when we post something or we share something, the system that we're interacting with already knows how we want that data or that content to be handled, so that only the people who we want to share that with find out. And it just becomes secondary, so that this whole idea of controlling your privacy, your security, is kind of handled for you by the systems that you're interacting with. And I would expect that the Facebooks of the world are already kind of figuring this out the hard way now, but that those systems will evolve and reflect automatically how we want our data to be shared with others.
I think it's a great point. I think there's also a potential danger there in that as competition for, I think that this like your PowerPoint was perfect about all of the different platforms that do very similar things. There's going to be a big consolidation. People, I mean, there's still going to be a lot of diversity, but I think there's a lot of services that are going to kind of go away as others consolidate, and you see it now. And they're all going to be facing pressure for monetization. And I love the cartoon that's been making the rounds, which says, if you're not paying for it, you're not the customer, you're the product being sold, right? So the idea that every social network or every one of these services that we're all talking about that are all free, I think, pretty much, except for the 99 cents and whatever, they're going to be facing monetization pressure, and it's up to us to continue insisting that our rights and our interests are being taken into account, and not the idea that if the real customer gets more value out of knowing exactly where you are and exactly what you're doing, the systems are going to offer that. They're going to try. So I think I love that cartoon, and I encourage you all to find it and circulate it.
All right. Any final thoughts from our panelists? Anything else you want to touch on or share with folks? Any particular resources you want to mention? That's good starting points for people.
Will these presentations be available to us?
Yes.
So we'll post them on the website.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming.